Welcome, everybody. My name is Jakob Kalbfell. I'm part of the Play business development team based in Berlin. And I'm happy to have you here at this late hour for the last session of the day. We call it the graveyard shift. Please stay awake. Bear with us a little bit longer. We're the only 3 people between you and the bar, so that should give you some hope. There's light at the end of the tunnel. The topic of the panel is already being communicated to you by Jansen, driving conversions on Android apps. Now, what are conversions? Conversions are, in my opinion, the essence of what all of you guys here are doing, the best possible outcome, the result of a good job within the buckets of quality apps, engagement, retention, churn. If you get all of those things right, the conversion will come up. However, a conversion is not necessarily a purchase. And a conversion can happen all along the user journey. Think about your own user journey during a normal day. You wake up in the morning, you turn off the alarm clock. You check the news, you check the weather, you check your messages, your emails, your snaps, your tweets. You arrange dates, you work out, you pay for lunch, you hail a cab, you do some shopping, you buy gems for your favorite games. All of those interactions can be conversions to the respective developers, moments of opportunity. So there are loads and loads of different types of conversions on Android apps. And in general, you can categorize them and distinguish by 2 types. One is on-platform, happening on the smartphone within the app or the game. And the second one is off-platform, triggered by something on the app or on the smartphone or in the app or the game, but happening in the real world. So I had a lot of conversations over the last 2 weeks with developers, what could be interesting for them to listen to in this panel and to discuss around conversions. And the statement or the feedback reconfirmed my viewpoint that conversions is something that cannot be thought about one-dimensionally by just having one KPI. It's a multi-dimensional issue, and for that, I tried to structure it in 4 buckets. And again, I'm going to put the fingers. Number 1 is the basics. So anything that's around the definition, the prioritization, the correlations, the interdependencies of KPIs. The second bucket is everything around organizational issues. So anything that goes with processes, workflows, team structure, and so on and so forth. The third bucket is what you would have expected this panel to be about after all, anything that's in product optimization. So UX, UI, behavioral design, hooking, nudging, anything. The fourth bucket is around out-of-product optimization. So anything that's happening outside of the product, in the funnel, influencing your conversion. Luckily, I have found 2 very interesting partners that have an amazing story to tell to all of those 4 buckets, whilst at the same time being from completely different industries, completely different business models, and different stages in their company life cycle. On the one hand, I'm having Niklas Jansen, who's one of the co-founders of Blinkist. Blinkist is an education startup based out of Berlin that takes the content of non-fiction books, distills it into small little packs that can be consumed while reading or listening to, and then creates knowledge for the user. Niklas is responsible for product strategy and ensures that the culture is flourishing, in his own words. On the other hand, I'm welcoming on stage with me Andrea Trocino. He is the director for technology, web and apps for ASOS, a multinational shopping destination. Huge business. He and his teams are looking after the products within web and apps and trying to build an amazing shopping experience for all of their users globally. So without further ado, please welcome with me on stage Niklas and Andrea. Ciao.
Ciao.
Hello. Cool. Thanks for joining us, guys. I'm actually going to pass this on. So we've had a lot of conversations, and by now we actually know each other quite well. So without further ado, directly into the basics. I know, or before I started our conversations, I thought that the topic of conversions could be a very easy one. At Blinkist, you're trying to sell subscriptions, and at ASOS, you're trying to sell fashion. right? Now, unfortunately, or fortunately, you could say, I've kind of been, well, this premature assumption wasn't correct, and it's a little bit more complicated than that. Andrea, I'm going to ask you first. What are the basics of how you look at the conversion topic at ASOS?
Cool. So, hello, everyone. And before I start, I want to say that my Google Now was trying to suggest how to say good evening in German, and actually I already forgot it. So that's a really, really bad start. But I think what I can start with is first point that data and machine learning are much better than humans on learning and giving you the right inputs. So I'm particularly happy to join the topic about the conversion rate, because it's been one of my personal crusades in the last couple of years in my career. For those of you who are not familiar with an e-commerce business, the conversion rate is defined as simply as the number of orders divided by the number of visits. And one of the easiest way to win an argument and explain to people like Jakob how conversion rate is not the holy grail of an e-commerce is just making an example of if you have a company A making 5 orders out of 10 visits, or you have a company B making 6 orders out of 20 visits, you'll probably say the conversion rate of the company A is better. But actually, if you really think about it for like 2 or 3 seconds, you will probably want to imitate the company B. Because it doesn't matter how many visits you get. It doesn't matter how many orders you get, as long as you get the most of both of them. So that's why I think conversion rate has to be put in context. This is why at ASOS we look at conversion rate, obviously, is one of the metrics, but then we also care, and actually we care most about the engagement. That's why for our Android apps, we look at active installs, monthly active users, the frequency, how often they come back to our properties, and how much time they spend when they are in app. Then you take all these metrics and you do your product optimization based on the customer life cycle rather than a single metric like the conversion rate.
But do you prioritize them at all then?
Yes, for sure. So when you're in a company with 4,000 people, you need to prioritize. You need to give a clear prioritization. Otherwise, you're going to have bombarding by every single person with a top idea for your product. So we give priority based on a number of metrics. Again, there could be revenue, from a revenue point of view, from an engagement point of view, from a brand awareness point of view. Sometimes we also have to do legal requirements. So we do a combination of metrics, and once a month, we could do a prioritization session across the whole company.
I'm very happy that we're not 4,000 people at the moment.
That makes things much easier.
OK, but how does this look like at Blinkist, this user-centric approach?
Yeah, so I think it's, so what you said before, in the beginning, that of course one of our business goals is to sell subscriptions. That's true, that's very simple, but the way to sell a subscription is probably much more complex than just looking at the conversion rate as a KPI. So we don't think about conversion as just one KPI, we think about conversion as a user journey, which starts often in the App Store and ends at a point where the person makes a decision, OK, Blinkist is a product I want to spend money on because it really brings me value and it's something I want to kind of like use on a daily, weekly basis. So when we look at conversion or like the outcome of conversion, we think of this journey. There are a lot of small micro-conversions along the way, and you can optimize a lot of them with the goal of creating the outcome that is selling a subscription. So the way we approach it is there are plenty of what we call proxy KPIs. So we think like KPIs that happen very early in the funnel, for example, where we say, if this happens, a user is much more likely to convert afterwards. The conversion is the outcome that we measure the success based on, but we would rather optimize for micro-conversions along the way, which then lead to a subscription. So for example, one thing we try at Blinkist is that instead of just looking at screens or flows that would directly lead to conversion, we try to map the whole user flow, beginning at the App Store, to the onboarding, to the first user experience, to the upsell flow, and really try to understand what is the user going through, what are they experiencing, what is holding them back from making a purchase decision, and then optimize these step by step. And these optimizations, in the end, lead up to a higher conversion rate. And maybe very interesting to understand how we work is that I think for product people, the App Store page especially, something you don't spend much time thinking of because it's often taken care of by marketing teams. We actually try to bring together the marketing team, the product development team, even the content team, to look at the whole funnel together and then prioritize experiments together that would then lead to a higher conversion rate.
And also the formal structure is then accordingly?
So yes, I would say there are 2 ways. first, the product development is structured in full-stack teams around our main business themes that are new user activation and subscriber engagement. So we want to convert people, and we want to keep them as a lifetime customer once they're converted. But at the same time, the product development teams work very closely with the marketing teams. For example, they have weekly check-ins where they prioritize, look at data together and prioritize experiments to run.
OK, and how are those two teams staffed then, if I can ask?
The product teams, they are staffed, as you say, full stack. So they have mobile engineers. They have 4 mobile engineers. For each team, they have a product manager, they have a designer, and they have a QA person.
OK, interesting. Andrea, how is it, now obviously ASOS is a lot bigger than Blinkist. How is the organizational structure affected by the way you look at conversions at ASOS?
So the numbers are slightly bigger, but the concept, I think, is quite similar at the end. So we divide our technology based on our architecture. So we have a microservice architecture. So we have a number of what we call platform teams looking after every single, let's say, service in the e-commerce platform. So you can imagine the payment service, the product service, the subscription services, etc. And then we have in the front-end teams like the iOS team, the Android team, and the web team. So that could bring a little bit more separation from what Niklas was describing. But actually, what we do is we stitch all together with our product buckets. So we look at as I was saying at the beginning, we look at the customer life cycle, and we split our activities and our products in 3 phases. The first phase is discovery, then there is fulfillment, and then there is retention. The discovery is all about how you bring new customers or lapsed customers to our properties, how you show them what's new in the platform, what's new for them, and how you can inspire them through our content, campaigns, and products. Then is fulfillment. Fulfillment is once you've been very, very inspired and you really know what you want, what you're after, then is everything starts after. So everything about making your purchase the safest possible, giving you the most important and relevant information, like suggesting you your recommended sites or giving you all the product information, assets, videos, etc. about that product, and then all the checkout process, making it as frictionless as possible. And then there is the last bucket. The last bucket is how you build the relationship after the purchase. So how you can bring back the engagement, how you can have them to engage with you, like checking where is the parcel, getting what's new in the ASOS world, what else can be engaging them from a loyalty scheme point of view. So all the activities that are meant to bring that engagement back after the conversion is already done.
OK. And so you told me you have 900 people in the tech segment in ASOS. How do you make sure that all of those people then stay in sync with this structure?
I wish I know a silver bullet for this answer. So the reality is I'll say that we work very, very closely together across the business. This is one of the beauty of the company. So we tend to have a bi-weekly session with all the product management, with the data and analytics guys. We work on a monthly prioritization session to make sure that we are all aligned to the top priorities of the business. And we tend to use every single tool possible in terms of communication to keep everyone engaged with this is what's going on, this is what is going to be in beta for the internal employees, this is what is going to be in beta for new customers, etc. So we tend to spread as much communication as you can.
OK, cool. Niklas, actually one more question to you. So I know that traditionally, originally you followed a very traditional approach in terms of team structure, and you only changed to that structure you described recently. Sure. And that this was a challenge at the beginning. You want to talk a little bit about, well, first of all, the reasons why you changed, and then secondly, the challenges and how you overcame them?
Sure. So I think the main reason why we did it can be summarized in one word, which is pizza. The long answer to that question
Obviously.
is, so we kept growing as a product development team, and at some point you have like 10, 12 engineers, 2, 3 product managers, 3, 4 designers, and the team just got too big. And there's this pizza rule from Jeff Bezos, the founder of Amazon. He says, if a team gets too big that you can't fit it with like more than 2 pizzas, you should split the team. And we were at this point where we said, OK, either we we have to split the team in a way, and then we thought, OK, what's the best way to split the team? We said, OK, let's organize the team around our business goals, our main themes, which are activation and retention. So that was the main idea, that like every team has a mission they can follow and really work towards a shared purpose as a team, and not only doing features. I think it's very important, especially for developers, that they know the features they're building, what they're paying towards. And the second reason was we believed that it could parallelize output. So in the past, we would always have to prioritize experiments either for conversion or for retention. And now having 2 teams that can run independently allows us to ship experiments on both sides at the same time. Challenges, of course, it's like there's much more communication needed because suddenly you have teams that run independently but still work on the same code base, need a kind of like a shared release process. And I would say probably the release process was the biggest challenge, coordinating different releases, different feature branches, bring it together so that you can, in the end, release one version to these stores.
Cool. And that actually leads us directly to the next bucket. For all of you who paid attention, we just discussed bucket number 1, the basics, and 2, which is the organizational pieces. And we're going to move on now to 3 and 4. So next part, the second part of the panel is about the experimentation, the nitty-gritty stuff, and the secret sauce of what you guys were finding out during all of the testing that is happening at all times in your businesses. So in product optimization, testing, obviously, there are loads of different ways to find success for each of your own businesses, which is why the examples we picked between ASOS and Blinkist are only examples to inspire you and to take home with you for potential opportunity to test within your own businesses. Niklas, we've been working together a couple of months back with your teams and our teams on a project where we applied behavioral design principles that were presented earlier by my colleague Jenny to your business, and where you did some experimentation around that. Do you want to talk about this? And I hand you the clicker.
Sure. So I brought one experiment. I brought this mainly for 2 reasons. The first reason is why it's very interesting because it shows a change in how the way we approach experiments at Blinkist. So in the past, we have been focusing on a lot of small experiments, just like changing one variable at a time and see what the outcome is. But we realized as a company, we haven't really found like the perfect flow for us. We thought, let's try bigger experiments. Let's have just like something that can really move the needle and try more of those. And we don't really care if we change 10 variables in this experiment. All we care about is that the outcome, for example, the conversion rate goes up in the end. Because in the end, you can like make a lot of assumptions why something goes up, but what matters eventually is that something goes up. The second reason why I bring it is because it's exactly what Jakob mentioned. There are some psychological triggers we analyzed and why this experiment worked in the end. So what you see here is our old onboarding flow. This is what happens right after you sign up. You get in, you get a 24-hour trial right away. You don't have to opt in for anything. There's no strings attached. You can use the product for 24 hours for free. And after that, you have to upgrade to keep using the product. This is great because there's no strings attached. It's very transparent for the user what they can get out. They can use the product on their own, at their own time. At the same time, 24 hours is quite it's not enough time to use the product. And people were still a little bit confused. And what we mostly lost is this urgency. So people can use it. They can come back 7 days later, but there's nothing where you say, OK, no, I have to subscribe, or no, I have to really buy a subscription. So what we changed is this is the new onboarding flow. And as you can see, there are a lot of things that changed. The first thing is that the layout changed. The pop-up changed. The subscription screen, how we sell the subscriptions, how we promote them changed. But most importantly, what changed was that we changed from this 24-hour, no strings attached, free trial to a 7-day purchase now trial. So I'm not sure if I have the right words for that, but what Google Play offers you is that a user can start this free trial for 7 or 30 days. But after the 7 days or 30 days, the subscription is automatically turned into a subscription if they don't cancel within the 7 days. So very similar to what you know from Netflix, for example, when you subscribe for the first 30 days free trial. After the 30 days, if you didn't cancel, you become a subscriber. So we changed this model, completely different free trial model, longer trial period. It turns automatically into subscription. We changed the UI, and we saw more than 50% increase in D10 conversion rate and in average revenue per user. The thing is, we can't really tell you why that is. There are a lot of things we changed, but what we see, it really increased the revenue. So the takeaways from this is, the one side, obviously, it was a really large-scale hypothesis we tested here that, for us, worked really well. Instead of just doing very incremental optimization, if you change the flow, it can really change the mechanics of your funnel completely. If you look at the distribution curve, so in the past, you see a lot of the purchases happened after the first month, actually. So now most of the purchases, more than nearly 50% of the purchases happen in the first month. Actually, most of the purchases happen on the first day in the first session. So most people start a free trial and still stick around and become a subscriber. So the whole funnel changed completely, which of course is a new challenge for marketing and for product communication, but we now have a new playing field where we can optimize from. So we dare to do a big change. I would kind of like encourage everyone to do big changes. And just try to be transparent, build trust. I think one big learning was as well, like the old model, although we perceived it as very fair, users didn't really get that it's fair. The new model is a little bit less fair, you can say, but it's more transparent because people are used to this flow, for example.
Very cool. Really good insights. Thanks for sharing. Andrea, now at the ASOS, I assume, given the size of the company, there are always A/B tests going on, and you picked, I think, 1 or 2 special ones.
Yeah.
Go ahead,
I really like to make my points and to win my arguments. So I picked a couple of tests that are very, very controversial. So please bear with me the last 10 minutes of the session. So what I wanted to show you is a couple of tests we've done in the Android app. And the first one is about having proposition banners in the product page. What we mean with the proposition is mostly referred to the delivery solution. And we picked a couple of examples. One is our Premier delivery, so similar to another big company called Prime something. And there is a yearly subscription in which you get next day delivery for free. And the second one was just a banner saying, actually, for your orders, you're going to get free delivery and returns. As you can see down the numbers somewhere on the screen, the first banner drove a crazy amount of visits to the Premier delivery subscription. That tells that obviously people want to know more about the subscription, and actually probably the awareness wasn't great up to that point. And the second banner, the free delivery and returns, brought to a less engagement in terms of going and tapping on the banner. But in terms of the overall results, the second banner was the one performing, bringing a conversion rate increase. So which one would you take? I think everyone will go for the second one, because obviously it's the one that's bringing more money home. But actually what we did is we went completely for option C, and we decided to build a much more complex solution, having like a segmentation across our customers and targeting each type of customers with a different proposition. So if we know that a customer is already shopped with us and is most likely to be interested in the Premier subscription, we serve that message. If actually it's a brand new customer that doesn't have any history with us, we serve the other banner. So that was the first trick. Now, the second trick is about pushing people to add to basket. This is like, if you talk to every single designer, they will always try to sell you, we need to make the main action more prominent. We need to have this very, very easy. Even if you stumble with your phone, you need to tap add to bag. So that's what we've done. So we've done a couple of variations. And for most of our products, obviously, you need to select the size before going to add the product to the bag. So we've done 2 variations. One was to have a sticky, actually, it doesn't really, I think we cut a little bit of the slides, but basically it was a sticky button to have the add to bag button on one side in variant 1, and a sticky button to select your size on the variant 2. Now, the outcome of both variations drove a higher engagement with people adding to bag, because you're making the action just in their face. And then again, if you look at the KPI of this test in isolation, and if you think my objective was to drive more people to add to bag, thumbs up. Pick one, it's a success. I think number 2 has got 14%, so we should develop number 2. When you open your eyes and you look at the whole picture of what are you doing to the customer behavior, then what we experienced is that there was no change in the orders. And actually, for an e-commerce platform like ours, in which we have a huge variety of products, and our catalog is super quick, so every 12 weeks we change completely all our products on the website. Our stock availability is one of those things that triggers you a little bit of pressure in ordering something. That's why when we add something to the bag, we reserve the stock for you for 60 minutes. So if you succeed with this experiment, you're pushing people to add more stuff to the bag. They're not buying eventually more. What's happening is you're reducing the chance for other people to buy. So all of this to try to say, basically, when you do a test, you need to be very, very clear on what's the KPI on the test, but you also need to have a clear view of what else is impacting the customer behavior or the experience.
Wow, OK. That's a lot of input. Very good. So we're at the end of...
I think I covered bucket 3 and 4.
We did cover bucket 3 and 4, yeah. we're at the end of our time, actually, and I think we should... time's up. There's the sign. Perfect. So that was a lot of input and good examples, obviously, on how to optimize in your product. We didn't get to around the product, but there is a lot of information on that as well that we're going to release later on. I think what's interesting, and I think that's, for me, the main takeaway, is look at it holistically. Don't look at one KPI and don't isolate KPIs from each other, but look at it holistically and in a sustainable manner. Don't maximize short-term for one single KPI. That's going to then decrease other KPIs that you're not looking at so much. So that's my takeaway. However, I'm 100% sure it's not going to be as clever as your takeaways, which is why I'm actually going to let you close the panel. From all of the things that you talked about today, or even the things that you didn't mention, what would be the one thing that you would give the audience to think about now, after, when they have a drink? Niklas.
I wanted first to say good things happen at the happy hour here, but I think like the takeaway would be obsessed with the problem, not the product. I think as product people, we often get obsessed with the product itself, but we should always take a step back, trying to understand what is the problem we're solving, and try to put ourselves into our users' shoes and see what they experience and optimize that, rather than what we believe is the right thing to optimize.
Perfect.
Last session, last statement, that's a lot of pressure. So I'm going to copy something I read in a book a few weeks ago. The more you learn and the more you experiment, that increase the chances of you making the right decision. That is true for both humans and machine learning. That's why I think it's a very, very interesting concept to optimize, test, learn, and then go back and do it again.
This is even almost the final word for the entire event, Andrea. And that's Tamsin's job. Cool, perfect. Do we do questions or not? No? OK. So if there are any more questions, please feel free to find the two of them, and me, if you need, at the drinks later on. Otherwise, we're going to hand it back to Tamsin. And I thank you both for being on stage and being our guest and sharing your best practices. Thank you. Thank you.